I've literally just brought a PowerPoint to bars, being like, "Hi, you want to learn about keyboards?" I'm the worst.
You've done that?
I have done that. My name is Cassidy Williams, and I am a software engineer, developer advocate. I love making jokes on the internet. I love building mechanical keyboards, and I really love helping people get to the best that they can be in their tech careers. So when I was a teenager, I was walking home from school in 8th grade. I was 13 years old, and I heard a neighbor say, "Check out my website." I was like, "Oh, you could have one of those?" Because I thought websites were just like a business thing that you could get somehow. I never even considered it being a technology that you could just use. And so I went home and just started looking up how to make websites. And there were not as many resources back then. Kids these days are so spoiled with all of their tutorials and YouTubes. And anyway, I just started looking up what was code, what was making websites, how did it all work, and just started teaching myself from there, and figured out what SEO meant, and figured out how to make graphics for it. I got really good at GIMP and just kind of figuring out how to put a website together. And so when I went to college after that, I was like, okay, I need to be much more focused. Where my first internship was kind of exploring all the things that I liked. My second one was more refining technical things and again, going to hackathons and everything. And for my last internship, I wanted to go to the Bay Area and I just wanted to network a ton. I wanted to meet as many people as I possibly could. My goal was to get over 500 connections on LinkedIn, to really just meet as many people as I could. And I went to Grace Hopper, which was the Grace Hopper conference, a big conference for women. And at that conference, they had a giant career fair, and I interviewed constantly at this career fair. And there's so many companies there, and if you ever want a job, go to the Grace Hopper Career Fair. It's amazing. And I just booked back to back interviews constantly. And that's how I ended up at Intuit. And Intuit, they make a bunch of financial softwares and stuff. And what I liked about them, not only were they in the location that I wanted and had a lot of really nice people, but they had a lot of opportunities for innovation and stuff within the company. And so when I ended up going to Intuit, I went to a hackathon almost every weekend. I went to meetups constantly throughout the week, and I got to meet so many cool people, and a goal met. It was awesome. I got to meet so many neat people, and one of the hackathons really changed the trajectory of where my career started to go. Because at this hackathon, I met a woman named Kelly Hoey, and truly I just got her business card. I was just like, cool, nice to meet you. And then later I sent her a thank you note. And then the next hackathon after that was one where I just started emailing a ton to try to get into, and it was a hackathon on a plane. And on this plane, it was going to be a flight from San Francisco to London, and we had to build on this plane and try to make something that would bridge the gap in STEM. And turns out this woman, Kelly Hoey, was going to be on this hackathon on the plane, and she was going to be on my team. And I was like, well, great, let's make this happen. And she, to this day, is a mentor and friend of mine and is amazing, and it's been years, and she was totally awesome. Our team had such awesome people and so many cool people on this plane in general. I met Craig of Craigslist. I got to meet Megan Smith, who ended up being the CTO of the United States. I met executives from GitHub and Intel, all of these amazing people, and I was truly humbled to be there. And I also felt like I shouldn't be there because I was a little undergrad student while there are all of these important people around me, but I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so it worked out to just keep asking to go on the plane until they let me go. And our team ended up being one of the winners at this hackathon, and we got to speak at a bunch of events in London, and then later we were invited to speak at the United Nations, which was very exciting. And so by the time I got back to college after that summer, I was like, well, dang, it's time to look for a job, and I'm going to the United Nations. I was so excited, and going to more hackathons while I was in school, and just figuring out, okay, I want to keep meeting people, but I also want to be job interviewing and stuff. And at a hackathon that fall, I ended up interacting with Venmo, and Venmo is a payments company. People outside of the US don't know it as well, but in the US it's pretty popular. They were sponsoring one of the hackathons, and they said, well, do you think you could come to New York? And I said, well, I'm going to be speaking at the United Nations, and that is a great plug to give to companies when you are job interviewing. And so I ended up just making that a double trip, where I was doing my on-site with Venmo and speaking at the United Nations the next day, no big deal, and ended up getting the job, and that ended up being the job that I took to go to after graduation. And from there, after graduation, moved to New York and worked at Venmo for a while. Venmo was acquired by PayPal. PayPal ended up splitting up from eBay and IPOing on its own. Quite the whirlwind, and it was really, really awesome. I met lovely people at Venmo that I still stay in touch with to this day. It was such a fun, chaotic time to be in fintech and working at that company. This keyboard is called a White Fox keyboard, and it has Zelios switches, and so they're tactile but a little bit heavy. And what's fun about this one is they have the White Fox keyboards and the Night Fox keyboards. And so the White Fox is white, the Night Fox is black. And so my husband got the other one and I got this one, and we swapped out the colors. So the Night Fox typically has the red keys and the Night Fox typically has the blue ones, and we swapped. And it's fun to be able to have these keyboards that are like kind of matching but kind of different. Figuring out what I wanted to do with my career and with developers and how I want to interact with people has definitely been the trial and error process. As much as I would love to say, I just really know myself, I don't think I do. But the being able to have the opportunity and the privilege to get all of these different roles and try different things has definitely helped me a ton in that refining process. And there's a book that I read recently, Think Again by Adam Grant, and it's all about rethinking certain ideas that you might have, certain motives that you might have, and there's a point in the book where he talks about reassessing your life regularly and kind of having that 6-month period every 6 months where you say, is this what I want to be doing? Should I change track? And I think I kind of did that unintentionally, I realize, and I think it's such good advice to kind of reassess, is this what I really want to be doing? And something that I've started doing over the past few years is, honestly, I've started doing it a while ago, but started actively maintaining, is I have a pros and cons list of every job that I've worked for, that I'm currently working for, and that I may work for someday. And it's just this gigantic spreadsheet that I try to keep updated, where even if I'm perfectly happy at a job, I will talk about the pros and cons in this spreadsheet. If there's a potential whisper of a role in the future, I put it on the pros and cons spreadsheet, because sometimes it's very clear where I will list the pros and cons and the con will say, I think I would probably hate this job. Hey, that's very clear, and that's a good thing. But being able to be granular about that and visualizing that has been really helpful for me to figure out, what do I actually want? What do I actually not want? And I think those are both equally important. You need to both know what you want and what you don't want in a career to be able to figure out the roles that you want moving forward, and then also figure out what type of jobs you want to pursue. So I think a lot of people think that if they want to establish a personal brand, they need to have logos, and they need to be just like, okay, this is who I am now, let's go. It's not like that, and I honestly think it could end up being very cringy if you go in that direction. I think a very key aspect of personal branding is not like, how do I become famous? How do I have this symbol that people identify with? It's really just knowing what you want and what you don't want. And I truly wrote it down, and I talked about this before with the pros and cons list thing and everything, but if you establish a list of what do I want to do, what do I not want to do, what am I good at, what am I not good at, those are very important things to know about yourself. I know about myself, I never want to write C again. I do not like that language. That language brought me a lot of heartache, and so I am staying away from that community in general. I'm sure they're lovely people. It is not for me. I decided to stick to the web thing because I like web development. I think it's neat. And then I also know that I'm fairly decent at it. I leaned in towards the public speaking because I like it, and I'm fine at it. People tolerate my voice. But I also try to stay away from certain types of management roles and everything because I like helping people do well in their jobs, but I don't like dealing with office politics, and I don't like dealing with fighting with management about getting headcount and that sort of thing. And so establishing those kinds of things I think are very key for building a personal brand. And then after that, it's just your personality, where I think me on the internet, a lot of people are just like, that's the girl who makes memes. And that's true. I like memes a lot, but that's not really how it started. A lot of my initial Twitter presence, if you see, is mostly me just retweeting links that I think are cool about JavaScript and stuff. And I would occasionally try to say something funny, but it was just kind of me shouting into the void. And then once I started making videos and TikToks, people started paying attention because attention spans, kids these days. I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, that's truly how my brand started to grow a ton, where I was always working on my newsletter. It's been more than 4 years that I've been working on my tech newsletter, but a grand majority of my subscribers came in the past 2 years because I've started to refine a little bit more. People like the jokes and people follow in that direction. And so I think consistency is a big part of it, sticking to what you know, what you don't know, what you like, what you don't like, and then also just being yourself. Community has been such a huge part of my career. I can't emphasize enough how wonderful it's been for me and so many different people too, where I genuinely think that in any industry, if you have a community, you are more likely to stay in that industry. And if you can have a community that you can reminisce with, that you can celebrate with, that you can vent to, it's so key and so important and really helpful for growth as well. And the one that comes to mind that has been most significant for me is a group that I started kind of just on a whim with Patreon, actually, where I thought, hey, you know, what if I had this group where I could offer resume reviews and mock interviews and stuff, but then also just have a low barrier to entry where people could just join if they want to have a space, and because it's a very, very low entrance fee of $2, there won't be spam, you know? And it's been such a wonderful community where we can play video games together, we can help encourage each other on job interviews, help practice certain coding problems, kind of just hang out on the internet. I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people that I wouldn't have otherwise and made such close friends, and also just been able to vent when times are hard. And in various communities that I've had on the internet, when times are rough, surprise, I'm a woman, and there aren't many of us in the tech industry. Being able to have other women to speak with that I don't necessarily work with, or even being able to just have allies in the community, it's so helpful when times are rough and when you're not sure what to do, or where you just need a gut check of some kind. And I think for everyone, but especially for historically excluded people, it's so important to have a community where you can rely on them to have your back when you're not sure what to do next. This keyboard is called a plank keyboard. It's a 40% keyboard, meaning it has 40% of the typical keys that you'll see on a larger keyboard, and it's orthogonal, meaning it's a grid. And so the theory is that because it's a grid and your fingers don't have to splay out, it's better for your hands because your fingers move up and down, and it has different layers of the keyboard. So you might notice there's no number row on it. If I hit this button, suddenly this layer becomes a number row. And it's kind of like the layers of keyboards on your phone, but it's built into this nice, very clicky keyboard that I built. I am very against the concept of proposing to someone, will you be my mentor? I think that can work for some people, but for me, for a lot of the relationships I've seen, I am not for that. Because it's kind of suddenly saying, hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but be my mentor now. We have a relationship and I expect this from you. It's a lot. I am very, very pro establishing yourself in a community, getting to know people, following up with people, and just start asking questions of people. And as you start to build that relationship with people of asking questions, not expecting certain amount of time from people, and really just getting to know people a little bit more, mentorship relationships can grow out of that. Where, for example, a mentor of mine that I mentioned earlier, Kelly Hoey, I first met her at a hackathon. I got her business card. I sent her like a nice to meet you note. Then I met her again at another hackathon. Then we went to an event together. And in between those times, I would occasionally email, how do you ask for a raise? Or what do you think about these 2 roles that I've been considering? Or could you recommend this as a place to work because I know you know the founder? As I started asking her questions more and more, and she would occasionally say, hey, by the way, I need someone to judge this hackathon. Would you like to help out? And kind of having that give and take relationship, we have such a close relationship now where to this day, she's a person that I talk to regularly, where I will always promote her book because she's great. She will pretty much always think of me when she needs to talk about tech things to certain communities. And it's a great relationship. And I have that with a handful of different people who are awesome. And it's truly from just asking questions and getting to know them a little bit and never actually saying, you're my mentor now. It just kind of happened naturally. And it's almost like dating in a way where you don't just say, hello, you're my partner. That's not what happens. You get to know them a little bit and then it kind of is solidified and that happens. And in communities, I think it's a much more natural thing where I can say that a lot of people in the communities I hang out with are kind of mentors to me because I look up to them, I see what they're doing, and I want to see where they're going and try to follow their path. And in the same way, I'm able to help people answer questions about their jobs, get new roles, and figure out what direction they want to go in. And I feel like doing that in a group setting is even better because you have that many more resources, that many more perspectives and experiences. And it's just, I think that's where mentorship is going. You don't necessarily need a one-on-one mentorship relationship. You can have a whole group of people talking to each other and learning from each other and growing with each other. So being in the industry as a woman has its pros and cons. Sometimes there are more of one than the other. And I will say, when I first went into tech, I didn't actually know that that was a problem. Like when I was first playing around in 8th grade, figuring out websites, I was just like, wow, coding's cool. I just thought it was awesome. I had no idea that there was a gender gap of any kind or a diversity gap of any kind. I went to a pretty diverse school in the Chicago area and I just didn't know. And then when I went to my first AP computer science class, the teacher started with, as you can see, we have a girl this year. And I was like, oh. And I just didn't know that was it. And I was just like, I guess this is how it's gonna be. And that ended up kind of being a pattern for a lot of companies I've talked to, a lot of classes that I took. It's just how it was. And there have been, again, pros and cons of that. I've been able to make some amazing relationships with other women in the industry, other non-binary people in the industry, because we're just like, there's not many of us. Let's stick together. And being able to be involved with like Latinas in computing, being able to be involved with just these communities of women has been so helpful to me because I'm just like, okay, I'm not alone, but also to be able to help encourage others, where there have been times where I'm able to talk to someone and we have a general understanding because we have that context with each other, where we know what it's like to be the only one in the room or one of two in the room, and so we can share that experience and help each other out. And there have been times where women will approach me or people will approach me and say, hey, just so you know, you saying this made me know that it's okay to stay in tech and it'll be fine. And me speaking out about certain things has been able to help people. And honestly, that kind of keeps me going, because there have been times where I'm just like, why do I stay in tech? I should just quit because it's exhausting. And there's so many times where it's been me getting harassed or a friend of mine getting harassed, my sister getting harassed, people who I care about deeply dealing with just awful things in the workplace, and you feel very powerless and you're just like, this is just how it is. But if I can be of any help to anybody in this industry, even if it's just being a smiling face making a poop joke on the internet or something, I will do it, because there's so much opportunity, and so many people I know have been able to turn their lives around completely because of this industry. And if I can help make it even just a little bit better for those people to be in this industry, I will, and that is why I've stuck around. I've been Cassidy, and I really appreciate you listening to me today and hearing my story, and I hope it's been helpful for you. Mark Twain once said, "Comparison is the death of joy," and I don't want you to necessarily compare your journey to mine, because it's all different. But I hope that you can take from my experiences and try to find some advice that might be useful for you, and take it and be the best that you can be. There's this one quote that's my favorite from Helen Keller: "One can never consent to creep when one feels an impulse to soar." It's one of my favorite quotes, because when you find that thing that makes you want to soar, to do really well in your career, it's really exciting to really just push for it and do well. And so I hope you can take some of the advice that I've given you today to be able to run with it and soar on your own. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great one.